Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my absolute pleasure to have as my guest my brother from another mother, although I am the prettier brother, and I remind him of that frequently. But my good friend, dear friend, soul brother, Kris Munsch from Hays, Kansas. Kris is a man of many categories. He has, in his life, he has been a teacher, and he's still a teacher. He's a builder. But the biggest thing about Kris is that he's a repurposer. He likes to repurpose old buildings, old homes, into something that is in his likeness, that represents who he is at this particular moment. And he's repurposed his life in other areas, including his grief. And I've had the pleasure of watching him grow over the years. I think we've watched each other grow. We've witnessed each other's path. And we've looked at things very differently. But the similarity is that we share the same values and that we respect the way we grieve. We respect each other's right to grieve as we see fit, and we all learn from it, which is, I think, if everybody in this country could model that type of interaction, we'd have a country that's based on shared values of integrity, inclusiveness, active listening, and just a greater understanding. So now that I'm done philosophizing, Kris, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. This is your third run with me. And we're going to be here to talk about a variety of different things. But obviously, one of the things we're really going to get into is your new book, Living on the Razor's Edge, which I'm anxious to get a copy of and read. So with that, welcome, my friend.
Hey, it's good to be back. Third time's the charm, is that what they say? Or maybe the third time we'll just destroy this whole thing. You never know.
Well, you know what you could do is just destroy the whole thing and rebuild it from the ground up.
Yeah, it's funny when you were talking about rebuilding houses. I always see people post pictures of old houses. They say, I'm going to restore my house. And there's a big difference between restoring and rehabbing, or renovating. Restoring is taking it back exactly the way it was. And that's not going to happen. You're not going to put galvanized pipes in. But when you do rehab or restoration or rehabilitation work, which I think is a lot what we do, we never want to restore and go back to where we were. We always want to do rehab work and build on what we have. And you're right, man. I think the mutual respect for who we are, we do have different beliefs in things, but here we are, still talking, still loving each other, still helping each other. And man, that's what it's all about.
I've used some phrases to talk about repurposing our grief or redefining ourselves using the foundation of a house. And I tell my students, I said, if you're going to try to rebuild the foundation of a house using the same materials you used 10 years ago, it's probably not going to work. It's going to be outdated. It's just like life. If we're going to rebuild the foundation of our values, our priorities, who we are, especially after the tragic losses that both you and I have experienced, if we try to rebuild that foundation with the same mindset that we had prior to those tragedies, we're probably going to be stuck in the muck. And that foundation needs to reflect the materials that we are incorporating now to repurpose our lives.
Yeah, and I am somebody who ties everything to something tangible, right? When you're talking about foundations on a house, concrete, rebuilding the foundation, people get that. They see that. They understand that. That's why I love talking to your students when we can during the semester. When you bring up something that's real and they understand, and then you tie it to life, it's a lot easier to make some sense of it. It gives it more meaning. When you talk about grief and loss and thoughts and feelings, they're just a whim, a cloud in the air. They're not even a cloud because you can't even see them. But when you tie them to something, it's a little easier to make some sense of it. The whole goal in my eyes is to know where you are. This morning I have on 2 different socks. I'm just a beginner. It's a reminder. Start my day off, before I even take a bite of my sauerkraut, put on my 2 different socks. I'm just a beginner. I've got 62 years of experience to approach my day, and it's a physical, it's a reminder that it's so simple, and often it's simple. Often it's so simple, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Kris, we're all beginners, we're all works in progress. We're going to, continue to learn and teach until the day that I start dancing in another dimension, and we both do. For me, I mean, the mantra of this podcast is we're all students and teachers, so let's learn from each other. And that's the same philosophy that I have in the classroom. I tell my students, I said, hopefully you're going to learn from me, but I'm going to learn more from you than you will from me. It's a shared community of learning. You're not too young for me to learn from you, and hopefully I'm not too old for you to learn from me. And I don't want you to silence your voice because you think you have nothing to say. You got something to say. Everybody has something to say.
Oh, yeah. When you go into a classroom, I always told all my students, I always tell people all the time, when you go to talk to somebody and they think they're up here and they put you down here, leave. Just walk out. They're not there to help you. You need an environment where you're equal. You come in as equals because we are equals. And every time you talk to a student or you have, as a teacher, I think real teachers walk into a classroom and they understand that it's us, right? We all have something to share. When they say, I've been in your shoes, no, you've never been in my shoes, because nobody's been in my shoes. Nobody's seen the life the way I see it, the experiences that I've had from my perspective. You and I, we drive out to the Grand Canyon, we step on the edge, we look out. One of us is like, well, it's just a big all it is erosion. Another person looks at it from, man, look what God created. And it's that difference in how we get there. If you're in an environment, and that's what I love about what you're doing, you're coming in like this, right? We're all equals and we're all here to share and learn from each other and help each other. You may listen to 20 podcasts and you take one 10-second snippet away. That's the purpose. That's why you keep seeking.
Yeah, I mean, if you come in and you kind of level the playing field, it's going to create an atmosphere of safety, an atmosphere of trust, and an atmosphere where everybody's going to realize that their opinions, their thoughts are going to matter. And one of the responsibilities that I have is differing opinions and beliefs are welcome as long as you do it respectfully. There's not going to be character assassination. That's a red line for me right there. If you're attacking somebody because of who they are and, the color of their skin, their ethnicity, their beliefs, then you probably are not going to have a place in my classroom for that, because that's a firm red line for me. And I say that because I always entertain Murphy's Law. I don't ever anticipate that's going to happen historically with the students that I've had, but you say it anyway, just so that the class knows that here's my red line. They know exactly this is how far you can go and this is how far you can't go. And I've never had that happen where I've had to ask a student to leave a class or drop a class because they were just misbehaving and they were just misogynist or racist or anything like that. And I've been grateful for that.
You set the tone. I mean, you'll walk in a classroom just like I do. You set the tone right off the beginning that everybody is on, man, we're here to learn. And that so often that dissolves those positions somebody might have. And if they're really wanting to learn, that they're going to understand that immediately. That's what makes a great teacher, is somebody who's willing to go in and listen as much as they profess, right? I mean, as much as they speak their opinion and their place and their experiences. It's funny. I taught 10 years at the university here in construction management, and I always made life my priority. Teaching construction and management was honestly my secondary goal. And it was because I wanted to give them a snippet of what they were going to run into when they got out there, but really where they were going to learn construction and management was out in the field. But if I could give them good life lessons, then ultimately that's the whole deciding factor of how successful they're going to be. I love that part.
Yeah, no, one of the things for me is I love imparting life lessons, but also real life examples. And I think from both of our experiences, just not in academia, but in the working world, the profit sector, the non-for-profit sector, we can bring those experiences in the classroom and make the principles of construction management or the principles of psychology or spirituality come alive. And that's what they're going to learn. I tell my students, you're not going to consciously think, okay, I'm going to use this particular theory or principle when I'm working with somebody. Your interaction is going to flow naturally as a result of who you are. And then later you're going to probably think, well, geez, I used some elements of cognitive behavioral therapy, or I used some elements of this construction management principle. But if you try to fit the theory to the problem or fit the theory to the individual you're working with, you're going to fall flat on your face. You just let the interactions, you let your intuition, and you let what that person is presenting guide you in terms of what you do and where you go. And then you worry about theory later. Then you do the analysis after that.
Yeah, that is absolute truth. That I love the way you state that. You can know a million theories, and you think, if somebody's talking to you and you got to step back for a second, go, okay, no, wait a minute, I got to think of the theory this fits so I can react. You are approaching, in my opinion, you're approaching it the entirely wrong way, right? It's got to come natural. People draw from you. They want to believe in you, right? If somebody's struggling or they're reaching into you for some experience, even though it's different. I'm 20 years in. So December 23rd, that was 20 years since Blake died. So I've got 20 years of experience of being a bereaved dad. Now, Blake was my only son, and it carries with it like a different flavor because he was my only son. I've struggled with the thought of, gosh, what do I do now? Everything I'm working for and building, where does that go? How does that live on with you? If I had other kids, I would have the ability to carry that on. So there's all these layers that are in there that you have to think through. And, coming up on the 20 years, that's a big anniversary. We celebrate anniversaries for weddings. We celebrate being married. We celebrate all these different anniversaries, but we don't often talk about anniversaries of death. Gosh, I got divorced 20 years ago, and those are deaths. There's so many types of losses out there. I sent a message yesterday with a picture of living on the razor's edge to somebody who actually inspired me in the first place, that made me even think that I could write a book. The Birdhouse Project was the first thing I did 15 years ago, and then I just kind of put it away. And then as I approached this 20th anniversary, oh my gosh, it was been back in March. I already knew then that I needed to do, because of my experiences of being around you and other people and learning, I knew that the emotions of that anniversary were going to probably be a little heightened compared to the rest of them I've been through. And I wanted to do something with that energy. So I started writing. It's crazy if you surround yourself with the right people. I'm not a writer. I'm a builder, dude. I want to cut. I'm going to pour some concrete this morning as soon as I'm done here. That's my world. That's my thing. I did plumbing work yesterday, some sewer lines. Today I'm going to go pour concrete. It puts a smile on my face to think, gosh dang it. I did something with that energy. I used it for positive. I was super hesitant to put the book out there. Realistically, if you want to talk about pulling a concrete slab or fixing the foundation or putting new shingles on the roof, I'm pretty confident, but there's a risk to putting your words on paper and putting it out there for other people to read.
Yeah, and I want to get into the book too, but I got to share this thought with you before I forget. Because I'm getting a little older, Kris. If I don't share things, right away, I tend to forget.
I understand.
Well, hey, you're a youngin'. You're a little younger than me. So,
Not that much.
Yeah, but yeah, you're still a young blood from where I'm sitting. So, but anyway, now you mentioned the 20th anniversary of Blake's death. The one that was really toughest for me for Janine, it wasn't the 20th. It was approaching her 17th, and I call it Angelversary Day, but going into the 18th year. Janine was 18 when she died, and the stark realization hit me that she was going to be in the afterlife as long as she was alive on Earth. And that's a milestone, as you know, other parents have struggled with. And I remember the days leading up to that. Her Angelversary date was March 1st, but like in January, February, I was like returned right back to shadow grief, where just the extreme pain, I could feel it physically, I could feel it emotionally, I could feel it cognitively. And then, you talk about support. And there was a person whose son died, was probably 3 years in. And I was telling her how I was kind of feeling out of sorts. She goes, well, you're approaching the 17th year. You're going to go into the 18th year. Represents she's been dead as long as she's been alive.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. That's why it just brought me to my knees. But, it's like, and the thing is, I was able to learn from that and learn from somebody who was not as far along as me, but yet she shared that wisdom, which goes back to the points. We can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter if it's somebody 30 years younger than you, somebody who is 3 years into your grief as opposed to 20, you can still learn if you're open to that. The other thing, we talk about spirituality, and I think you're a very spiritual person. You just have your awareness created differently. You create it through working out in nature, through pouring concrete, through repurposing old houses. I mean, everything that you do is a spiritual experience from your frame of reference, because when you create, it's a very intuitive process. And you always look at the history of any structure and you take that history into account. So in a sense, you're connecting to something that's much greater than yourself, but you're doing it through your natural God-given abilities as a builder and a repurposer. So somebody could say, well, Kris, you're not spiritual because you build. Well, I'd say, hell, you are, because you do build. And it's the process that goes into it and the awareness that you share with everybody and about yourself after the project. So,
Yeah, I agree. That stuff is healing to me, man. I'm telling you, it's sitting in this house is healing to me, right? We moved it 72 miles to save it, and there's just warmth and comfort in that, right? And I think that's the whole purpose of if I sit down and read the whole Bible, why would I read the Bible? Well, because I want to get any information, warmth, and purpose out of it, right?
mhm.
And it's no different for me than to pour concrete. There's a purpose in it. There's somebody's going to utilize it. It's going to be there for years to come. And that's the power. What can I leave behind that makes a difference? My parents raised me with a philosophy to leave it better than you found it. And that did not matter what it was. You just leave it better than you found it. Whether I was going to be there for 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 months or 5 years, leave it better than you found it. And if that's the goal, if that's the ultimate goal, to meet somebody in line in a grocery store and a short conversation, if you can leave them with just a snippet of good from you, they could be pondering suicide in their mind, or they could be struggling in their marriage. But if you give them just a hint of good, maybe that'll help them through the day or see some positive in their own lives. Because I'm telling you, buddy, people are struggling out there.
Yeah.
People are struggling.
Yeah, and and particularly in the college environment, there's a lot of students that struggle with depression, anxiety, just the state of affairs in the world, the uncertainty in the world right now. And so my focus is not just to build a professor-student relationship. That's one aspect of their existence, but it's to build a relationship with them as a young adult where they can feel comfortable coming to me and talking to me about concerns that are affecting their ability to perform in the classroom. It's treating them as not just students, but treating them as individuals with lives. And if you do that, you can see the difference in their response to you because they see that you're vested in their success, not just as a student, but as a person.
And that's right. That's all anybody wants, Dave. That's all I want. That's all you want. That's all anybody wants. They want to have value. When my dad died and I watched my mom lose purpose, right? Lose the value. She cared for him for 7 years after he went through cancer. And then her purpose in life had turned into helping him. And when he died, her purpose just plummeted. And as she's getting older, I see that there's a struggling purpose, right? And it takes that outside perspective to be able to see that and understand it and absorb it a bit, because you have to envision yourself in their position. And you think, wow, and that's a lot of the struggle nowadays, right? When you look at, I picked up the news this morning and looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, Ukraine. How do you even want to fix the tire on your car when the whole damn world's in this turmoil. But that's really what it comes down to see purpose in why I need to fix the tire so I can get to work, so I can make some money, so I can be in a better position for myself, to where I can live and be okay. I think the ultimate goal is to want nothing, right? The ultimate goal is to want a need for nothing. I love sauerkraut, man. I'm telling you, dude, I love sauerkraut. So I've been buying sauerkraut from the store, and I ran into somebody that makes homemade sauerkraut. They make like 1,500 pounds of sauerkraut every year. And I found out that they have these stacks of jars of sauerkraut. And so when I found that out, I bought one case, 12, and I went in the house, man, I chowed down like, oh my gosh, this is good. So I ordered 2 more cases. So I had 36 jars, and Larissa walks in and she's like, what is all this sauerkraut for? I'm like, baby, it's comforting to know that I've got 36 weeks of sauerkraut. That's all I need. It comes down to sauerkraut for me. If you can want and need, and you can want promotions, and you can want all these things, but if you can base it on small things and live according to those foundational things, that you really don't need a lot to survive. I don't need this house. I don't need all of this. It's great to have it. It's all wonderful, but there's going to be the day's going to come, Dave, that I'm going to die, and I'm going to go away, and it's going to be a new family in here. And you got to be careful, because that can also make you go, well, I don't need anything, right? I don't need this house. So there's this fine line in there. You find to walk and be comfortable and peaceful, right? It's about being peace with your life, no matter where it is. And that's, I think they call that self-actualization. Somebody told me that once. Maybe it was you.
Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe I was channeling Abraham Maslow or something with his hierarchy of needs. But you make a great point. Abundance is how we define it. Abundance is what is it going to take for us to have enough? And isn't them not necessarily material things? It's just basically, do I have abundance in relationships? Do I have abundance in activities that are going to bring me joy? For me, abundance is being comfortable enough where I could pay my bills and have some money left over for other things. So, it's, I don't need to be filthy rich, because I'm not going to be, where I'm going, Kris, I'm not going to take it with me.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, it's just, it's going to be left behind for somebody else to enjoy and to, and hopefully that's how our legacies will get passed on, by individuals sharing in what we have created, as far as that legacy goes. So, so for me, it's like, unless I could take it with me, which I can't, I'm not going to need it where I'm going. It's all relative anyway.
I think that if you can live with that thought in mind, it takes a lot of pressure off you. It makes the real things in my mind much more vibrant. When I say real things, I know the vision of me being buck-ass naked is not a pretty vision. My wife has no idea how lucky she is that I wear clothes. But the idea that if you can just, be comfortable in your own skin. Well, what does that even mean, be comfortable in your own skin? Well, that's a big deal, to be comfortable in your own skin, because it's not an easy thing to do these days. In the Birdhouse Project, it has everything to do with the foundation. Who are you?
Yep.
And so many people don't know who they are, Dave. They have no clue who they are, because they're so damn busy trying to be somebody else. They forget who they are. I think there's a lot of people out there who have never known who they really are, to be honest with you.
I mean, I was just talking with somebody about this yesterday. If you ask somebody, tell me about yourself, they tell me what they do, but it's not who you are. What you do is not who you are.
Yeah.
But we're so focused on functionality, on achievement, on accomplishment, on leaving our mark through some variety of accomplishments that after we go aren't going to be remembered by too many people. But it's just like when I ask somebody, tell me about yourself, don't tell me what you do. Tell me who you are. Tell me what gets your blood going in the morning. Tell me what makes you passionate. Tell me something about you that's going to make me want to know you better. And it's not your accomplishments, it's who you are. It's what you're made of. And those are the measures that I think we need to teach our young adults in terms of implementing when we ask them, who are you?
Well, we've gotten so driven in the fact that you're nothing without a college degree. Well, if you get a 2-year tech degree or even a 9-month tech degree, you're less than somebody who gets a 4-year college degree. There's no truth to that. It's like it does not matter if you're building your life on your resume, which is going to get deleted when you're dead, and nobody's going to care because that ain't going to matter. And social medias, they post all the obituaries in the Hayes area, right, on social media, where they do everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
No longer are they on a paper. It dawned on me one day that a guy I knew really well, he passed away. Within 1 week, you're going to be 2 pages back. And within, a month, you're going to be 4 pages back. Next thing now to even go find him would be, I'm not even sure how I'd find him in that list of all the people that have passed away. That's really what happens. You do get kind of forgotten, and that's the point, right? So if you're going to get forgotten, why not just be comfortable in your own skin? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, and you've said to my students, the hardest thing that you're ever going to do is be you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that is, if you look at it, that's a mouthful in one statement.
Yeah.
Because other people's expectations that they have of us sometimes get in the way of us being us. And, we try to meet those expectations with the belief that if we meet those expectations, we're going to be well liked, we're going to be accepted. But what have we sacrificed in the process? Is it worth it to sacrifice ourselves just for the approval of somebody whose values may not coincide with us, but we need that external approval to validate our existence? Yeah, I'm not so sure that's a price I'd want to pay at this point.
It's always good, Dave, to somebody pat you on the back. It's always good when my wife says, that's really cool, you did that. But there's nothing more satisfying than, God dang, I can leave behind a lot of things in my life. I can leave behind houses and concrete pads and all those things and feel good about it because that's the purpose for the day, right? I feel good about what I'm doing. I get done at the end of the day. I'm like, that was a good day. A lot of times when Friday comes around, I sit down on my porch if it's nice out and open a beer. And I'm like, man, I'm not sure who kicked who in the teeth this week. Did I kick this week in the teeth or did this week kick me in the teeth?
Mm-hmm.
But that challenge is the whole reason I get up in the morning, is to go and have that challenge. So when I tell students or when I tell people, the hardest thing you're going to be you is you, and stand on it. When you write on that piece of wood, who am I? Now stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now try to stand on it, because people are going to try to push because they don't want you to feel comfortable. They don't want you to feel good in your own skin because they're not feeling good in their own skin. So how dare you feel good in your own skin? I would say be you, get to that point, and then the real battle starts, is that's being you, because then you're going to want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on, here I am on vacation in Mexico a couple weeks ago, and that's what my wife and I do. And we don't really want to celebrate Christmas because we've both been through loss at the Christmas season. So we just are not a big Christmas celebrating. So we go on a trip. So we're down in Mexico, and here I am texting you things that I'm reading because I had mentally stepped away from all the things I was doing, and I had some time to kind of do some reading. And I ran into metacognition and the idea of thinking about what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And how that makes you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Now that's so cool, dude.
That is cool, because thinking about what you're thinking, you get to the root in terms of how those thoughts got planted in the first place.
Yeah.
What were the influences you had growing up in your peer group?
Yeah.
Are those thoughts valid for me now? What can I do now to kind of change the history of that? What can I do to rewrite the script so that it reflects who I am now? And that's something that is when you texted that to me, I looked and said, yeah, this speaks to me. So you talked about, I know we talked about the Birdhouse Project, and you've alluded to your new book, Living on the Razor's Edge. For those individuals who don't know about the Birdhouse Project, give us a little background about how that evolved, and maybe how your work with the Birdhouse Project is kind of translated or built off of your new book, Living on the Razor's Edge.
So the Birdhouse Project literally came from, I won an award in the state of Kansas for teaching. They asked me to give a presentation at a conference in Topeka. I'm like, how am I going to teach project-based learning on a PowerPoint? That just is like, that makes no sense. So I cut out all these birdhouse pieces, and each piece had a step attached to it. So I go in there and I give this presentation and I handed out the pieces. Step one, the foundation. What's the foundation of project-based learning? And as I went around, all these people were setting up all these pieces. And it was successful. Project-based learning, it was a project. It's like, go figure. But when I got back to the shop, I had all these pieces sitting there on the table that I had left over from the presentation. I'm like, this is how I heal. I'm a project-based healer.
Yeah.
What if I attached the steps of what I feel like I'm going through, which are different now than they were back when I first wrote it? I've tweaked some things and made some changes because I've grown.
Yes.
Foundation. How do I feel? How do I react to how I feel? What have I accomplished? The front wall is goals. The roof is who shelters. Can I shelter myself? Do I need other people to shelter me? And the perch is all about trust, right? Baby bird, the Birdhouse Project has nothing to do with birds. It has everything to do with you. The birdhouse is you. And when you write on those pieces and put it together, all the writing's on the inside, which is you. You are the birdhouse. You are life. You do produce life. I did that for several years, traveled all over the country and did it. And then I just kind of reached a point where I can't keep doing this because I'm helping everybody else heal and I'm not taking the time to heal.
Yeah.
And so I stepped away from all of it for, I don't know, 7, 8 years, 9 years. I just did a few presentations here and there, not a lot. Stayed engaged, kept learning. I'm still learning. I'm taking a grief course right now, 12-week grief course. I learned, you may be doing something. Why am I doing this? And the instructor said, your emotions are data. You should gather that data and see why are you having those emotions? Then it made me go, oh my God, I need that. That is the Birdhouse Project, the wall. How do I feel?
Mhm.
Because of the Birdhouse Project and stepping away, I wanted to write something to use that energy, like I'd mentioned. And it's not a big giant book, 109 pages, I think, with all the pictures in there. And the point of that is I'm not trying to write a educational novel. I'm trying to write something that helps people. And the whole point is it's 12 chapters with 12 intentional lessons. At the end of every chapter, you got to do something. And that's me. That's how I operate, right? I'm doing something with my hands. And one chapter, you get all the way done, you finish up and you can lay the book right on the floor. It's got a blank page, your foundation of the birdhouse. Who are you? You write on that paper, who am I? And then you put the paper on the floor and you get up and you stand on it. Because that's what I do in the Birdhouse Project. I write on my piece, I stand on it, and then I talk to people about the idea of getting pushed off it. So that's what led me to think that anybody can write a book. It's so easy. You just write. Amazon has made it so simple to publish, to sell a book. Compared to the way I wrote the Birdhouse Project, I searched for my own ISBN, how to do all that. Now it's automatic, all right? The world is simple. But the hesitation is always, it's one thing for us to talk about it, but it's a whole nother thing to put it in writing and let people read what you're thinking. And it's funny because if I were to rewrite that today, I would change some things because I've already learned since writing that, which yeah, it's a cool process. And that's what I hope to share. I hope to share some lessons that I've learned that'll make a difference for others. And that's pretty comforting.
Yeah, and it's really an extension of building off, what you did with the Birdhouse Project, and it's taking it now to another level that represents where you are in your own personal evolution at this point. And I remember when the Birdhouse Project became something that you kind of eased yourself out of, because that wasn't you anymore. That was you at one point. That's how you were processing everything that happened with Blake and other things in your own life. But that now for you served its purpose. And
Yep.
as part of growth, that's like, okay, what do I need now that's going to represent, and what tools am I going to need now that's going to represent the growth I want to see for myself? And,
Yep.
but yeah, I could see where there's intentional lessons with the Birdhouse Project. There's intentional lessons with living on the razor's edge. And I like the fact that there's self-reflection that you kind of mandate after each chapter, because if you look at it as, One of the ethical principles in counseling is we have to engage in self-reflection about our strengths, about our limitations, what we can do to be a better service to those that we serve. And also, we need to do self-reflection anytime that we have an interaction with a client that may be life-altering for us. Every client interaction we have begs the question, what did that do for me personally? How can I grow from this? So, I could see Living on the Razor's Edge and the Birdhouse Project. Again, I'm guessing you're probably going to repurpose that as well, too, at some point I could see the Living on the Razor's Edge and the Birdhouse Project almost kind of being like a package deal.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I actually just, it's kind of funny, Margaret, a young gal at the university here who actually took on Living on the Razor's Edge as an editing project for her final project for her master's. She helped me get that put together because of me being distracted in what I do and pouring concrete and not always finishing what the semester ended. And so she's helped me get it done because she really wanted to see it through too. And so we finished it and got it all done. And now she's going to help me take the Birdhouse Project and reformat it to fit into the Amazon or the Kindle, whatever they call that format. So we can kind of put that back out there as well, because I think it's good for people to see my progress too, right? Because if you read the Birdhouse Project front to back, and then you go to the Living on the Razor's Edge, there's a chapter in there that takes you through the Birdhouse Project. It's changed, and I talk about that change in me and how I look at those pieces. But man, that's growth, right? That's what this is all about.
Yeah, we're not going to grow standing still or sitting still. We have to keep moving. And that's one of the other things is that, I always called you a visionary, and you got that because you moved. You found peace in movement and motion and building. And again, just like one of our kindred spirits, Neil Peart. Had I not mentioned Neil Peart in my keynote speech in Reston, Virginia in 2010, we never would have met.
Yeah. And I listened, and it took me years. You told me about him, but I was not ready to hear his story until I really had an understanding of my own story. And 2 years ago, I got the book on audio and I listened to it, and I see it. I get it. He rode his motorcycle and he was trying to find, his wife and daughter. His daughter dies in an accident, then his wife dies, and he was trying to find purpose. And when he talked about riding that bike and traveling and getting stuck in the mud, I could see myself on that bike, right? And Neil being Neil, and whoever Neil was and what he did, it wasn't his fame, it wasn't his drumming, it wasn't any of that. He talks about that in the book, where he didn't want people to know who he was, because that wasn't why he was on his journey. It's not why he was out doing what he was doing. He was singularly trying to go out and physically trying to find some use in his life. What does it mean? That's the whole point, is putting those thoughts together into writing. It's healing for me to write. I think I flunked the English comp twice at the university I taught at, which is kind of comical. And I'm still not a great writer. I need a great editor. That's what I need. Two twos and twos and the there's and there's. That stuff just doesn't really matter to me because it's not my point. If that was my focus, I don't know that my writing would be my writing. When I write, I'm writing what I see.
Yes.
I am writing down what I am envisioning doing. Sometimes when I write, I get emotional. You take yourself back to Blake and his death and some of those things. It can be exhausting. It can be an exhausting experience, but that's how I grow.
Yeah. And, I saw a lot of parallels with your journey and Neil Peart's journey in terms of how, you guys came through the other side of grief. But the other thing that I think you share is that he always challenged himself. This is a guy that is going to go down as one of the all-time great drummers of our generation. But yet he saw some ways to improve, and he enlisted the services of the late, I think, Freddie Krueger, who was a drum teacher. And, Freddie Krueger said, I'm not going to teach Neil Peart about technique. He knows technique, but what I'm going to do is teach him about feel. And if you look at Neil Peart's early drumming, which was fabulous, and still, I still look at his early drumming and say, boy, the fact that he could still challenge himself being as good as he was and thinking there's still room for improvement. And you look at it, his later drumming technique, it's all about feel.
Yeah.
It's the same technique, but it's just smoother feel. And he realized he needed something more. And I think that also kind of represented a new chapter for him post the death of his daughter, post the death of his common law wife. I
Yeah.
think that he repurposed his drumming, I think, and I don't think he's ever said this publicly, but it could have been also because of all of the repurposing he did while he was on the road for 4 years.
Yeah. There's no way he learned a lot about himself. And when you go out and you're doing your thing, I lived in my car for 9 months after Blake died. I got on the road and just built a birdhouse in every state except for Alaska and Hawaii, and I will get there. There's no way that you can think that, before Neil did what he did, Neil was a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a drummer. But when he got back after his experience, and if his book is anything close to what he experienced way more than what he shares, but the drums were him. Like, he is one and the same as the drums, right? The feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you become that. Those drums were doing what they were doing because of him. That transfer of energy through those sticks, he was giving it and they were giving back. And that's where he found his purpose. Isn't that the whole point for all of us, is to need and want nothing? I can be in a position where the world's going to give to me. I don't have to go seek it, right? Because it's all around you.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I still quote his work. He's a part of my classroom. And his teachings really have inspired a lot of blogs that I've written, and just continue to inspire me. One of his biggest takeaways, and there's so many quotes in the book Ghostwriter that you alluded to, it was this quote about forgiveness, is that there would be no life for me, there would be no peace for me unless I forgave life for what it had done to me, forgave others for being alive, and eventually forgave myself for being alive. That was profound for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that, we talk about forgiveness being for ourselves and forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. But the other piece we miss is forgiving the hand of fate for dealing the cards that dealt to us.
Yep.
And that piece to me was just so profound. And I still quote that is one of my favorite quotes about forgiveness.
Yeah.
So,
what's interesting about that is, as a parent who's lost a child, I think it's common and natural to feel like I don't want to keep living, right? Because of the fact that he didn't get to live. And especially because Blake was my only child. Why do I get to live and he doesn't? And I write about that, and I still feel guilty about it. And that's okay that I feel guilty about that. Even though I tell myself I did not drive that car through the intersection, he did. There can be that disconnect, and I understand that. But the reality is I should have been there. I wish I'd have had a flashlight and shined it on the stop sign. I wish I'd have waved and said, "Don't go through that intersection, Blake." I'm protected. I'm a dad. I'm going to protect him. And that's part of the fuel that helped me sit down and start writing chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, clarity. How do you gain clarity in who you are? When I finished the whole book, I'm like, why is anybody going to even believe me? And I saw a quote by President Roosevelt about, and it actually helps me a lot, is about being in your arena. Because with social media, there's just people out there that think they know everything. And when you really look into those people, you see that their arena, they're not even in your arena. They're just know-it-alls.
yeah.
And it allowed me to step back. And in the first part of the book, I thought, you know what, I need to clarify my arena. This is why I feel like I can write this. This is my arena. This is what I've gone through. This is some of the things I've experienced and why I feel like I can even write this book. It's powerful, Dave. It's powerful stuff to be in a position where you think, I'm okay. I'm okay. I am okay right where I am.
Yeah. That gets to the point you make about being comfortable being you, is that you're good right where you're at and you're comfortable with who you are.
The only bad thing about where I am right now is I decided to sit down on the floor at 62 on a hardwood floor and do this. And so then you start to realize, you know what, if I ever do the 4th podcast with Dave, I'm not sitting on the wood floor again.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be a 4th podcast. Just lay off the sauerkraut before you come on. And listen, your poor wife, God knows why, man. Especially if I would, for her birthday or sooner, surprise her with a waterproof hazmat suit.
Yeah.
And a gas mask. And then eat all the sauerkraut you want.
my God, I love that stuff. There's so many things I don't want to eat. I won't eat. We're down in Mexico, and I'm looking for a hamburger. I don't want to eat real Mexican food. I want a taco from, that's got hamburger chopped up in it. And then finally, I realized, wait a minute, I'm in the culture, be the culture, live the culture. And then I got tacos down there, and they had slivered steak in them and all their homemade salsa. I'm like, oh my gosh, when are we coming back?
Yeah, there you go. Well, you ever get your butt down to upstate New York again, I'll take you on the cheap diner tour.
Torn boots, greasy. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we got the menu and the napkin holders. Yeah, we got it all. So
I'm ready.
Yeah, I kind of figured you were. Well, my friend, I'll tell you, we could probably go on for about another 3 hours. But
Yep.
I know you probably you got to get going to pour that concrete. I don't want to keep you from your sauerkraut either. So. But I got a couple more questions for you. First, you've left us with a lot of great stuff today, but give our audience one ultimate takeaway for today that you want them to leave with.
You could have all the challenges in the world, but being you is by far the hardest thing you'll ever do. And when you settle into that spot, staying you, because people are going to push, that's what happens. And be okay with it because you're comfortable, you know who you are. But if you haven't started that journey of being you, I suggest getting a block of wood and write down who you are. I don't care what that block of wood's for, but it's real. It's tangible. You can see it, share it, but start that path.
Yeah. Good advice. And my last question, people want to contact you, purchase your book. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I had plans of having KrisMunsch.com up and running, and you can just go to KrisMunsch.com, KrisMunsch.com, and you can find out everything you want about me and the link to the book. But guess what? It's not ready. You can just go to Amazon, type in Living on the Razor's Edge, Kris, and I'm a Kris with a K, K-R-I-S, Munsch, M-U-N-S-C-H, and you can get the book right there. It's $19.95, I think. It even has color pictures, Dave. I asked my wife, what do you think, black and white or color? She goes, color by far. And I'm like, at least I can give them color pictures if they think the book sucks.
I doubt anybody's going to say that your book sucks. I've seen your writing on Facebook, and you could just take all of those muses and put those into another book. As far as your whole life philosophy, because you are a very deep thinker, and you're a great writer, and probably a better writer than you give yourself credit for. Because you write with your heart, and that's the secret of a great writer. I mean, it's all out there, it's honest, it's raw. You leave nothing unsaid. And that's what I love about you.
Thank you. You're a good dude, Dave.
So are you, my friend, and we got to do this again soon.
I love it. I love talking to you anytime.
You got it. Same here. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.